He had everything, but gave it all away to understand life, Tolstoy's final truth. He stood on the precipice of his own life, a life that, by all outward measures, was a masterpiece. A sprawling estate, the hum of servants anticipating every need, the weight of a name that commanded respect, and a mind that had wrestled with the grandest ideas and emerged, seemingly, victorious. Yet in the quiet hours, when the applause faded and the accolades turned to dust in his memory, a chilling silence descended. It wasn't the silence of peace, but the vast echoing emptiness of a cathedral after the congregation has dispersed, leaving only the ghosts of devotion. He had acquired the world, amassed its treasures, mastered its complexities, and yet found himself utterly bankrupt in the currency that truly mattered. The gilded cage so meticulously constructed had become a prison. This profound disconnect between a life lived to its fullest potential and a soul adrift in an ocean of meaninglessness is where our journey begins. It's a paradox that has haunted humanity for millennia, a silent scream buried beneath the veneer of progress and prosperity. We are told to strive, to achieve, to conquer, and we do. We build empires, both personal and professional, chasing a horizon that perpetually recedes, only to discover upon reaching what we believe to be the summit, that the view is not one of fulfillment, but of a stark, unyielding void. This is the crisis that whispers in the ears of the ambitious, the successful, the seemingly content. It's the gnawing doubt that perhaps all the striving, all the accumulating, all the control we so desperately seek is merely a sophisticated form of distraction, a way to avoid confronting the fundamental question of our existence. This is the precipice many of us find ourselves standing upon today. In an age of unprecedented connectivity, we often feel more isolated than ever. We are bombarded with images of curated perfection, of lives lived without struggle, without doubt, without the messy, inconvenient truths that define our shared humanity. We chase the phantom of control, meticulously planning our days, our careers, our relationships, believing that if we can just engineer the perfect sequence of events, happiness will be the inevitable outcome. But life, in its magnificent wildness, rarely adheres to our carefully constructed blueprints. It throws curveballs, introduces unforeseen challenges, and most importantly, reveals the profound limitations of our attempts to impose order on its inherent chaos. This ceaseless pursuit of external validation, this belief that our worth is tied to our achievements and possessions, creates a fragile foundation for our sense of self. When the external structures falter, as they inevitably do, we are left vulnerable, exposed to the raw, untamed landscape of our inner world. It's in this space, this uncomfortable territory of uncertainty and perceived failure, that the most profound truths often lie hidden, waiting to be discovered. We are conditioned to see these moments as endings, as defeats, but what if they are, in fact, the most crucial beginnings? What if the very things we fear most, loss, uncertainty, the dissolution of our carefully constructed identities, are the keys to unlocking a deeper, more authentic way of being? This is precisely the territory explored by Leo Tolstoy, a titan of literature whose life mirrored this profound existential struggle. He too experienced the dizzying heights of worldly success, the adulation of millions, the wealth and recognition that many spend their lives yearning for. Yet at the apex of his fame, he found himself staring into the abyss of despair. The very achievements that defined him began to feel hollow, the rituals of his privileged life a suffocating performance. It was this acute, almost unbearable crisis that propelled him into a radical re-evaluation of everything he believed, everything he had pursued. He grappled with the stark reality of death, the seeming absurdity of life's brevity, and the pervasive sense of meaninglessness that threatened to consume him. His writings from this period are not detached philosophical treatises, They are raw, visceral accounts of a soul in torment, a testament to the universal human yearning for purpose in the face of oblivion. He wrestled with the societal expectations, the religious doctrines, the philosophical systems that promised answers but offered only platitudes. He saw the disconnect between the grand narratives of meaning and the lived experience of profound suffering and doubt. His journey was not one of intellectual assent to a doctrine, but a desperate, all-consuming quest for a truth that could sustain him, a truth that could transform the crushing weight of existence into something bearable, even beautiful. Tolstoy's story is not an isolated incident. It is a recurring theme in the human drama. Think of the entrepreneur who builds a billion-dollar company, only to find himself isolated, unable to connect with his family, his health deteriorating, his spirit withered. Or the artist whose masterpiece is lauded by critics, but who feels an inexplicable emptiness, a sense that the creation did not fill the void it was meant to address. These are not tales of failure, but of a fundamental misunderstanding of where true fulfillment resides. We are so adept at navigating the external world, at mastering the mechanics of success, that we often neglect the inner landscape, the fertile ground where genuine meaning takes root. We believe that by accumulating more, by achieving higher, by controlling every variable, we will eventually arrive at a state of lasting happiness. But this is like trying to quench a thirst by building a more elaborate well without ever tasting the water. The very act of striving, of grasping, of seeking to possess can create the illusion of fulfillment while simultaneously perpetuating the underlying sense of lack. The world whispers promises of happiness through acquisition and accomplishment, but the deeper currents of our being yearn for something more. Something that cannot be bought, earned, or controlled. This is the paradox we must confront. The more we grasp, the more we lose. The more we try to control, the more chaotic life becomes. The more we chase external validation, the deeper the internal emptiness grows. We are taught to build walls, to protect ourselves, to project an image of strength and competence. But what if the greatest strength lies not in fortifying our defenses, but in the courageous act of allowing ourselves to be vulnerable? What if the most profound insights are born not from certainty, but from embracing uncertainty? What if the answers we seek are not out there in the next promotion, the next relationship, the next acquisition, but within the quiet, often overlooked spaces of our own being? This is the invitation of this journey, to step back from the relentless pursuit of more, and to explore the possibility that what we truly need is not to gain the world, but to understand ourselves, to find a way to live authentically within its embrace, and to discover the profound richness that lies dormant, waiting for our attention. He had everything, and in that having, he lost himself. He gave it all away, not in a moment of despair, but in a deliberate act of profound reorientation, seeking a truth that resonated deeper than fame, wealth, or societal acclaim. This is the story we will explore, a narrative of crisis, surrender, and the quiet, luminous discovery of what it truly means to live. It's a path that beckons us to question our own pursuits, to examine the foundations of our own happiness, and to consider the possibility that the greatest treasures are not those we accumulate, but those we uncover within. The narrative of Tolstoy's life, particularly his profound spiritual and philosophical crisis, offers a potent lens through which to examine the concept of asceticism, not as a radical renunciation of all worldly goods, but as a deliberate simplification of desires. Having experienced the opulent excess of his aristocratic upbringing and the subsequent material wealth he accumulated, Tolstoy found that these very accumulations became obstacles to authentic living. He began to see how the constant striving for more, the pursuit of comfort and luxury, dulled the senses and obscured the fundamental realities of existence. This wasn't about impoverishing oneself out of spite, but about consciously stripping away the non-essential to reveal the essential. It was a recognition that true freedom often lies not in possessing more, but in needing less. This notion of voluntary simplicity, of choosing a life less encumbered by material wants, is a powerful counterpoint to the prevailing societal narrative that equates happiness with acquisition and status. By shedding the weight of unnecessary possessions and the anxieties that accompany their upkeep, one can, paradoxically, gain a richer, more profound experience of life. Furthermore, this philosophical stance finds resonance in the psychological framework of detachment, a concept explored by various Eastern traditions and echoed in Western thought. It's not about becoming indifferent or emotionally blunted, but about cultivating an inner stance of non-possession towards external outcomes and material things. Consider the musician who pours their heart into a performance. Their joy comes not solely from the applause, but from the act of creation itself. When they can release the outcome, the need for validation, and simply be with the music, a purer form of fulfillment emerges. Conversely, clinging desperately to the expectation of a specific reaction can lead to profound disappointment and anxiety. This detachment allows for a more resilient and adaptable engagement with the world, recognizing that circumstances will inevitably shift. It frees one from the tyranny of what if and allows for a more present, grounded experience of life, where joy is found in the process rather than solely in the final product. It's the difference between building a sandcastle with fierce determination against the tide and appreciating the beauty of its ephemeral form as the waves inevitably reclaim it. Consider how this applies when you face the pressure to constantly acquire the latest technology, the trendiest clothing, or the most impressive possessions. The prevailing message is that these things will enhance your life, bring you status, and contribute to your happiness. However, the Tolstoy-esque perspective suggests that these very pursuits can become chains, binding you to a cycle of desire and dissatisfaction. The allure of the new quickly fades, replaced by the yearning for the next new thing. This is where the practice of mindful consumption and intentional living becomes crucial. It's about asking yourself, do I truly need this, or do I simply want it because it's presented as desirable? It's about recognizing that genuine contentment often arises from within, independent of external circumstances. The relentless pursuit of external markers of success can distract from the cultivation of internal virtues like gratitude, resilience, and compassion, which are far more durable sources of well-being. Another crucial layer is the psychological impact of habit formation in relation to desire. Our modern environment is meticulously designed to foster continuous consumption. From targeted advertising to the instant gratification offered by online shopping, we are constantly nudged towards fulfilling perceived needs that are often manufactured. Tolstoy's shift towards simplicity was not a sudden epiphany, but a gradual, conscious effort to break these ingrained patterns. He actively sought out simpler living conditions, engaging in manual labor and reducing his reliance on servants. This deliberate disruption of his accustomed lifestyle allowed him to re-evaluate his relationship with comfort and necessity. It's akin to an athlete undergoing rigorous training to break through a plateau. The discomfort is temporary, but the resulting increase in capacity and perspective is profound. By consciously choosing to resist certain impulses, to delay gratification, and to find satisfaction in less, we can begin to rewire our brains, shifting our focus from external acquisition to internal growth and appreciation. This active engagement in reshaping our desires is a powerful form of self-mastery, moving us away from being passive recipients of societal conditioning towards becoming active architects of our own experience. The profound shift Tolstoy enacted was not merely a shedding of possessions, but a radical recalibration of his understanding of human connection, moving from the superficiality of his social circle to an earnest search for genuine kinship. His aristocratic life, while filled with acquaintances and attendees, often lacked authentic intimacy. Relationships were frequently transactional, bound by social obligation, inherited status, or strategic alliances, rather than by shared vulnerability and unvarnished truth. This realization spurred him to seek out the company of ordinary people, peasants, laborers, those living closer to the earth and its elemental struggles. He observed their lives, their joys, their sorrows, and found a raw, unpretentious honesty that was absent in the gilded salons of his peers. This wasn't a romanticized view of the common man, but a recognition that shared hardship and direct engagement with life's fundamental challenges could forge bonds of profound solidarity and mutual understanding, a stark contrast to the performative politeness of his former world. Building on this, however, we can explore the psychological concept of empathy's cultivation through shared experience, a phenomenon that transcends mere intellectual understanding. True empathy, the ability to deeply feel with another, is often forged in the crucible of shared vulnerability. When individuals face common challenges, whether it's a difficult project at work, a personal loss, or even a shared physical exertion, the barriers of pretense and social posturing tend to dissolve. This shared struggle creates a fertile ground for authentic connection. Think of a team that has endured intense pressure together to meet a critical deadline. The bonds formed in that shared stress often prove far more enduring than those forged in casual social gatherings. Conversely, lives lived in isolation, shielded from genuine adversity, can lead to a deficit in this deeply felt empathy, leaving individuals feeling disconnected even when surrounded by others. Tolstoy's deliberate immersion in the lives of the common folk was, in essence, an act of profound, empathic training, a conscious effort to bridge the chasm created by his privileged upbringing. Now, consider how this applies when you feel a disconnect in your relationships, perhaps with family members or colleagues. Instead of relying on superficial conversation or expected pleasantries, try to find opportunities for shared doing. This could involve working on a practical task together, volunteering for a cause, or even engaging in a shared hobby that requires collaborative effort. The focus shifts from talking about life to living through an experience together. This shared engagement allows for a more organic unfolding of understanding and connection. It's in these moments of shared endeavor, where effort is expended and challenges are navigated side by side, that genuine camaraderie often blossoms, revealing a deeper appreciation for each other's strengths, resilience, and humanity, far beyond the superficialities that often define everyday interactions. Another crucial layer is understanding the evolution of social bonds in the face of existential pressure. When individuals perceive an external threat or a shared existential challenge, be it economic hardship, a community crisis, or even the shared experience of a global event, their social priorities often shift dramatically. The superficial distinctions that might divide them in times of peace and prosperity tend to recede, replaced by a primal instinct for solidarity and mutual reliance. This is not about romanticizing hardship, but about recognizing that adversity can act as a powerful catalyst for authentic connection, stripping away artifice and revealing the fundamental human need for belonging and mutual support. Tolstoy's later life, characterized by his rejection of aristocratic norms and his embrace of a simpler, more communal existence, can be seen as a profound testament to this principle. He sought a form of social organization that was rooted in genuine human interdependence, a stark contrast to the often fragile and self-serving alliances of the elite circles he had once inhabited. His search was for a community built not on inherited privilege, but on shared purpose and mutual respect, a microcosm of humanity stripped down to its essential collaborative spirit. Tolstoy's radical simplification extended beyond his social interactions to a profound re-evaluation of labor and purpose. He observed that the aristocratic life, detached from the physical demands of sustenance and production, often fostered a sense of aimlessness. The inherited wealth and status meant that the necessity of work, that fundamental human activity that grounds us in reality and provides a tangible contribution to the world, was absent. This detachment, he came to believe, contributed significantly to the existential ennui he himself had experienced. He began to engage in manual labor, tilling the fields, chopping wood, performing tasks that were physically demanding and directly connected him to the natural world and the cycle of production. This wasn't a mere hobby or a philanthropic gesture. It was a philosophical imperative, a way to reclaim a sense of agency and meaning that had been eroded by idleness and privilege. He found that the sweat of honest labor, however difficult, brought a clarity and a groundedness that no amount of intellectual pursuit or social engagement had provided. It was a direct confrontation with the physical realities of existence, a reminder of humanity's elemental connection to the earth and its resources. Furthermore, this engagement with tangible work can be understood through the lens of embodied cognition, a field of psychology that emphasizes the role of the body and its interactions with the environment in shaping thought and understanding. When we engage in physical labor, our minds are not separate from our bodies. They are intrinsically linked. The rhythmic motion of a hoe, the strain of lifting, the tactile sensation of soil, these physical experiences inform our perception, our problem-solving abilities, and our overall sense of self. Unlike purely abstract thought, which can sometimes lead to detachment from reality, embodied action roots us in the present moment and offers a direct, visceral form of learning. This is why, for many, engaging in craft, gardening, or any form of manual creation can be deeply therapeutic and clarifying. It's a way of knowing through doing, of integrating the mental and the physical into a unified experience of purpose. The repetitive, focused nature of many manual tasks can also act as a form of active meditation, quieting the incessant chatter of the mind and allowing for a deeper sense of peace and focus to emerge. Now consider how this applies when you find yourself feeling overwhelmed by the complexities of modern life, perhaps stuck in a job that feels devoid of meaning or simply disconnected from a sense of tangible accomplishment. You might explore incorporating more purposeful, physical activity into your routine, not as a form of exercise in the conventional sense, but as a way to reconnect with your physical self and the tangible world. This could be as simple as dedicating an hour each week to gardening, volunteering for a community project that involves hands-on work, or even learning a traditional craft. The key is to choose an activity that involves direct engagement with physical materials and a clear, tangible outcome. It's about experiencing the satisfaction of creating something with your own hands, of contributing in a concrete way, however small. This act of grounding oneself through labor can offer a powerful antidote to the abstract anxieties and existential drift that often accompany a life lived primarily in the realm of the digital and the conceptual. Another crucial layer in understanding Tolstoy's transformation lies in his re-evaluation of simplicity as a form of moral clarity. By stripping away the complexities and artificialities of his former life, he sought to arrive at a more direct and unvarnished understanding of ethical principles. The elaborate social codes, the intricate legal systems, and the nuanced philosophical debates of his aristocratic world often served, in his view, to obscure rather than illuminate fundamental truths about right and wrong. He found that in the lives of the unlettered peasants, stripped of these societal layers, There was often a more direct and intuitive grasp of basic moral imperatives: honesty, kindness, fairness, and the inherent wrongness of causing harm. This wasn't an argument for ignorance, but a profound skepticism towards systems of thought that became so convoluted they lost touch with lived human experience and basic compassion. He believed that true ethical understanding was not found in abstract theorizing, but in the consistent application of simple, universally recognizable principles to one's daily actions and interactions. This perspective resonates with psychological insights into cognitive load and decision fatigue. When our lives are filled with an overwhelming number of choices, complex rules, and abstract considerations, our mental resources become depleted. This can lead to poorer decision-making, increased stress, and a diminished capacity for ethical reasoning. Tolstoy's embrace of simplicity was, in a way, a radical act of reducing cognitive load. By adhering to a few core moral tenets and living a life with fewer external complications, he was able to free up his mental and emotional energy to focus on what truly mattered. It's akin to an athlete who simplifies their training regimen to focus on mastering a few key techniques rather than trying to learn a vast array of complex movements. This streamlined approach allows for greater proficiency and deeper understanding in the essential areas. The reduction of external complexity, therefore, often leads to an enhancement of internal clarity and moral conviction, allowing one to act more decisively and authentically in accordance with one's deepest values. Consider how this applies when you find yourself grappling with difficult moral decisions or feeling paralyzed by the sheer number of options in your personal or professional life. You might try to identify the core principles that guide your values, perhaps honesty, compassion, or integrity, and consciously simplify your decision-making process by referring back to these fundamental tenets. Instead of getting lost in the minutiae of every possible outcome, ask yourself, which course of action most closely aligns with my deepest values? This doesn't mean ignoring practical considerations, but it does mean prioritizing the ethical bedrock upon which your choices are made. It's about recognizing that in many situations, the morally right path, while perhaps not the easiest or most immediately advantageous, is often the most straightforward when viewed through the lens of fundamental human decency and shared responsibility. This deliberate simplification of ethical navigation can lead to a greater sense of inner peace and a more confident engagement with the world. Drawing these disparate threads together, we observe a recurring pattern: the illusion of control, so meticulously constructed, often unravels when confronted with life's inherent unpredictability. The pursuit of external validation, while seemingly a direct route to fulfillment, frequently leads us further into the labyrinth of our own desires, obscuring a more fundamental source of meaning. The very structures we build to secure our happiness, ambition, acquisition, social standing can, paradoxically, become the gilded bars of our own existential cage, limiting our capacity for authentic experience. In light of these converging insights, the path forward, though not yet fully illuminated, begins to take shape. It's as if we have been navigating a dense fog, guided by unreliable instruments, only to see the first tendrils of dawn breaking through the mist. The journey has revealed that true liberation often lies not in accumulating more, but in discerning what is truly essential. It is a gradual shedding, a conscious unburdening that allows us to perceive the world and ourselves with a newfound clarity. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider this unfolding perspective not as a destination, but as a profound recalibration of our internal compass. The world may continue its relentless spin, its demands for attention and achievement ever present. Yet the capacity to engage with it from a place of inner stillness, from a foundation of self-understanding, offers a different kind of power. One that is not about dominance, but about authenticity and resilience. The true practice begins now, not with grand gestures or radical upheaval, but with the quiet, persistent work of reorienting our gaze inward. It is in the small, deliberate choices, to need less, to connect more authentically, to find meaning in the tangible act of being, that the profound transformation unfolds. This is not an endpoint, but the commencement of a lifelong inquiry, a continuous unfolding of self-awareness, where each moment offers the potential for a deeper understanding, a more resonant